Yesterday, a federal district court in Kansas City issued a preliminary injunction suspending the city's ban on what the city is calling landlord discrimination of renters using vouchers to help pay their rent. We're now happy to have on Stacy Johnson-Cosby. She is the president of the Kansas City Regional Housing Alliance. I know you're very happy with this decision, Stacy. So why is that?
Well, because common sense prevails finally. And so the city thought they were going to force us to do business with people that we didn't want to. And in this particular case, with the Section 8 voucher, it would force us to actually enter into a contract with the federal government against our will. How dare them?
So for those who will say, as the mayor and others will say in this case, well, listen, we have discrimination laws. You can't not rent to people because of their skin color, their sexual orientation. If they've got the money to pay, whether it's through a voucher or not, why would you not want them as a tenant? How would you compare those two things, and what would you respond to the mayor or other advocates with?
One thing that they said is that this is guaranteed income. It's just like someone with a paycheck. And we know that a governmental program is not like someone with a paycheck. And we saw that a few weeks ago when there was fear that some governmental programs were going to be cut. Section 8 was one of those talked about. So imagine if the federal government stopped funding a program, then we would be stuck with someone in our properties that could not pay their rent. So it is not guaranteed. And any housing provider or landlord that chooses to do business with the government takes that risk knowingly and willingly. In this particular case, the city thought they were going to force us to work with a high-risk renter against our will.
Mm-hmm. So now, I mean, this came to be, was this 2 years ago or last year? When did this become a thing in Kansas City?
It was last year in August.
Okay, it was last August. So was it being implemented by the city, or was it going through the legal process so it had not technically been implemented yet?
Well, it passed early in 2024 and went into effect August 1st. And when they introduced it, they had not, the city council had not sat down to talk to us, the housing providers that would be the ones participating in the program. They also didn't talk to the housing authority who would be administering the vouchers. And they were doing all of this at the behest of a tenant socialist group, people who have never owned a single rental house or property in their lives create city policies. And this tenant group, socialist group, goes to city council, and the city council says, okay, we'll do what you want, without talking to the rest of us in the actual marketplace. And this is what happens when they try to work around the market and the players in the market.
Was that the KC Tenant organization you're referring to there that they listened to?
That is correct. And you'll see KC Tenants posting on Twitter and on social media that there is no housing policy that passed in this city without their approval. And I can't argue with them. The council is beholden to this group who do not create housing for some reason. They won't work with us, but they'll work with a socialist group, and it doesn't make sense.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Is it fear, or perhaps they agree with them?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, too, Pete, there's something else, the other part of the ordinance that didn't get struck down that's just as bad, and it requires us to work with high-risk renters. So it says that we cannot discriminate against someone who's had a previous eviction. And we know that 90% of evictions are for people who didn't pay their rent. So we can't discriminate against them. We can't discriminate against people with bad credit or low credit score, or prior property damage, or a criminal or arrest history. And if we're found, this is the part that people don't realize, if we're found guilty of discriminating against these groups, then we could be fined $1,000, lose our business permit, and go to jail for up to 6 months. That is a law in place in Kansas City today, and it doesn't make sense. And they think this is creating more housing. It's causing us to leave the marketplace and hold our units off market because we don't want to end up at the Civil Rights Department being investigated.
So that law still exists and is separate from the decision yesterday by the federal court.
That's exactly right. The federal court only addressed the Section 8 voucher part of it, but the rest of it still stands. And we could go to jail for denying someone who doesn't pay their bills or has bad credit. Can you imagine any other scenario or any other business where that would be the case and we're in a housing crisis? Wrong answer.
Do you know landlords who are leaving or have left Kansas City due to these new rules and regulations?
Absolutely. And every time the tenant group and the council come up with laws, this is the third time. Every time they come up, we lose people. As a matter of fact, my husband and I had a unit. We've already sold some units directly as a result of their policies. And out-of-state investors bought every single unit that we sold. And the rents went up and our previous tenants went out. And so they're having the opposite effect that they claim that they want. And they will not sit down and work with us on common sense answers. Because the answer to this source of income, for example, Johnson County, their housing authority incentivizes landlords to participate. They'll give you a bonus for signing up with the program and cover any repairs. And as a result, in less than 2 years, they've housed over 500 families by incentivizing. So Kansas City penalizes, Johnson County incentivizes, and the incentives are working, and yet we can't do that. We mandate instead.
Wow. Okay. So now the city also said, or the mayor said here in a statement yesterday, this is Stacy Johnson-Cosby joining us, president of the Kansas City Area Housing Alliance. The actions taken by landlords, that would be you, to challenge the programs in court and in Jeff City jeopardize housing access for 17,000 Kansas Cityans waiting for housing vouchers. That leaves 17,000 Kansas Cityans still looking for a stable place to live in our city. How would you respond to being the big bad landlord being referred to there?
Okay. First of all, we're not. And secondly, the actual figure is 29,000 on the wait list. And I know that because we're in touch with the housing authority. And our goal is to help them get people off the wait list. But that number is just the long-term list. There's a smaller number of people that actually have vouchers in hand on the street looking for housing. And so his numbers are wrong. And if he would talk to the housing authority or work with us, we'll say, here are the correct numbers, but here's our plan to help the high-risk renter find housing. Because our goal, we're in business to house people. That's our business. And so we make money, and we're not a nonprofit. We make money when we can get tenants to live in our properties. And so work with the person that is actually looking to house people. That's us. Mm-hmm. Instead of demonizing us, which they constantly do, work with us. We are working. We're working together to try to house high-risk renters for those who choose to, but we are not obligated. We're not a charity. We are a business.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing, too, because the KC tenants groups that rail on like big corporate landlords, they don't realize that, this whole policy is running off mom and pop landlords, and all that's going to be left is corporate landlords who can fight this stuff in court. So they don't even realize they're shooting themselves in the foot. Stacy, thank you so much for being here.
All right. Thank you, Pete. Have a great warm day.
You as well. That is Stacy Johnson-Cosby, president of the Kansas City Area Housing Alliance on KCMO.